Stinging allegations by the former Comptroller and Auditor General Vinod Rai on a series of high-profile corruption allegations have left the Congress fighting to defend Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister. Mr. Rai, who is releasing a tell-all book, says the buck for several scams, including the 2G scam, rests squarely at Manmohan Singh's door. Was our former Prime Minister looking the other way as 2G, Commonwealth and a series of other scams were taking place right under his nose?
Shocking revelations by the former Comptroller and Auditor General. Over a year after retiring from his post and 4 months after the UPA government was voted out of power, direct allegations being levelled at the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The former CAG Vinod Rai, in an interview to a private news network, alleged that the former Prime Minister had shown dereliction of duty by not choosing a different mode of auctioning 2G spectrum licenses, that there was regular communication between him and then Telecom Minister A. Raja on this matter, that there were officers from the Aviation Ministry who met Rai several times to suggest that he should not mention that the former Aviation Minister Praful Patel had nudged Air India to buy more aircrafts than was required. And Rai also claimed that several Congress ministers had met him post the CAG report on 2G and had asked him to keep the PM out of it. These allegations have found a place in his book called Not Just an Account, The Diary of a Nation's Conscience, which is all set for release. It's already caused a political stir.
फाइनल सैंक्शन उनका है तो इसलिए वो दोषी है ही। प्रधानमंत्री, पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री जी को जवाब देना ही चाहिए।
What was he doing when it was brought to his when it came to his notice? It was a constitutional body. He had every right to bring it in the public domain. Why did he keep quiet?
और मुझे बिल्कुल भी इस बात को कहने में कोई हिचक नहीं है कि ना कभी 2G रिपोर्ट मैंने उनसे चर्चा की और रिपोर्ट बदलने का तो कोई सवाल ही नहीं होता है।
But for the Congress, it's not just the opposition's attack. There seems to be questions being raised internally as well about the former Prime Minister's role. Vinod Rai had been in the spotlight towards the last few years of the UPA government, and experts point out that it is the audit reports under him detailing alleged corruption and misrule by the Congress-led government which was one of the reasons that cost them the elections. But even post his retirement, the spectre of the 2G scam seems to be revisiting to haunt the Congress top leadership. In New Delhi, Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, joining us now, Ashwini Kumar, Rajya Sabha MP of the Congress and former Union Minister for Law. Sir, the former Comptroller and Auditor General in an interview has said that you were one among 3 Congress leaders who tried to influence him to somehow keep the name of the Prime Minister aside in connection with the 2G allegations. How do you react?
You know, some insinuations and suggestions are so bizarre, Vishnu, that one is inclined not to lend them legitimacy by commenting on them. But for the record, and since you ask, let me say that there was neither the occasion, nor the need, and nor the capacity to influence the decision of the CAG. Let me explain this. There was no occasion to influence him because, as per his own admission and as per his own statement on this interview, the report which we were talking about had already been submitted and was in the public domain and was the subject matter of discussion in the PAC. There was no need for us to do so because, as members of the Public Accounts Committee, we had the constitutional authority to validate or invalidate his report and to quiz him on any aspect that we needed. The ultimate authority to go by or reject his report lay with the PAC. And there was no capacity also, I must say so with all humility and in fairness to the CAG then, for us, even if one wanted, even assuming without admitting one wanted to influence him, to do so, for the simple reason that occupying a high constitutional post, he has himself stated that neither he nor any member of his audit staff was amenable to any influence, and he has also been candid enough to say that no one, even in the Prime Minister's office, sought to influence him.
That being said, did you have any conversation with Vinod Rai even after the report had been prepared where you suggested that the Prime Minister's name shouldn't be included or in this at all?
Yes, I'll tell you, during the course, and I'm glad you asked me that question, if my memory doesn't fail me, and you can have it verified from the records of the PSC, during the course of the hearings, I specifically posed a question to Mr. Rai. This was in the context of the correspondence exchanged between the then Prime Minister and the then Communications Minister. The initiation of the correspondence was from the Prime Minister asking Mr. Raja to explain whether the decisions that were being taken by him were in accordance with the extant policy, to which Mr. Raja had categorically assured and replied that everything that he was doing was in accordance with the policy. In the context of this letter, I asked Mr. Rai, did he in his experience and as a senior civil servant think that at that stage, after receiving such a categorical assurance from the telecommunications minister, could the PM have done anything more, the then PM? And Mr. Rai honestly and candidly and in my opinion correctly said no. He said the PM couldn't do anything more.
No, but
it was the PM who actually asked Mr. Raja to clarify and assure him that everything was being done in order. And the administrative minister in charge categorically asserts to his Prime Minister that whatever he's doing is correct. What else could the Prime Minister have done? And I want to make a point here. In the transaction of business rules, all individual decisions end at the Cabinet Minister's desk. Only policy matters go to the Cabinet, which is prepared by the PM.
That's where Vinod Rai disagrees, because he says, and I quote from that interview, the buck stops at the Prime Minister's desk in any parliamentary democracy. He is the CEO of the country. He can stop or he can initiate. He can do either one of the two. So the allegation being made over here is that the Prime Minister did not stop what he says was the mistaken procedure at the very least.
You are absolutely right, and so is Mr. Vinod Rai, that eventually in relation to policy decisions, the Prime Minister has the ultimate authority. But when the Prime Minister puts his minister on notice and asks him that I have received certain representations, please tell me what do you have to say. And the minister in writing assures the Prime Minister that whatever he is doing is within the framework of policy. At that time there was no finding by anyone that Mr. Raja was flouting the policy at that point of time. Could the Prime Minister have then presumed that everything was which was being done was wrong and that he must interfere in the routine functions of the Cabinet Minister? That's a point that anyone in the government will tell you is never done by the Prime Minister. The context of the CEO, which Mr. Rai has brought in, is right to the extent that in a parliamentary democracy, ultimate policy making at the head of the cabinet rests with the Prime Minister. But that is not to say that the Prime Minister has any say in administrative decisions of a routine nature in the ministry.
Okay, so fair enough. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Ashwini Kumar, one of the three Congress leaders who's been named by Mr. Rai in being one of those individuals who actually tried to suggest that the Prime Minister's name shouldn't be mentioned or shouldn't come in as far as several allegations were concerned. Ashwini Kumar explaining the context in which he'd spoken to Mr. Rai. Well, joining us now to debate this and to look at the larger issue about the role of the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and whether he actually looked away when all of this was happening right under his nose. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, Vivek Bansal, spokesperson of the Congress, Majid Memon, Rajya Sabha MP of the NCP. The NCP finds mention in a couple of points in that interview. Dr. Kiran Bedi, former IPS officer, and KTS Tulsi, Rajya Sabha MP of the Congress and senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Thank you all very much for joining us. Nalin, let me come to you first. Critics of Mr. Rai would say that why did he actually wait to come out with all of these revelations? Why is it that he wasn't as candid or as articulate when the last government was in power? That this is being done, this is motivated. That's what his critics would say.
Well, I mean, his critics are entitled to have an opinion. As far as service and conduct rules are concerned, my understanding is that people who are serving within the government and are expected not to criticize their own government. After all, we haven't seen a model like the Congress UPA where the government was at times at war with itself, whether through coalition allies or otherwise. That's not expected from the bureaucracy. Number three is, what is important is the truth. If the truth is coming out at any time, or if points are coming out related to something which was questioned by the Supreme Court, cancelled 122 licenses, we should welcome it. If someone else has a counter viewpoint, they should put it out. In this case, what we said as a political party through and through is that the power center was outside the party. No one raised questions about the financial integrity of the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, but it was pointed out that in case here that the coalition partner whom they tried to put the
But
blame
that
on
is your implication.
drove policy as it
That
should not have
sorry,
been,
that is
and
what
he
the
didn't stop
BJP is
it.
assuming.
And the second case
That's
is
an
in the coal
assumption.
scam.
Nalin, 1 second. That's your
He was
assumption
just my
that the
last
power
sentence.
center
The second
lay
scam
beyond
case, he
Manmohan
was the
Singh.
coal minister, and through a period
Nalin,
the
can you hear
Congress
me?
MP, the Shari Narayan Rao, was the coal minister.
Nalin, can you hear me?
So
I'm
there
just
was no
saying.
coalition compulsion.
No, Nalin,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, isn't that your assumption that the power center rested outside the Prime Minister's office? You're obviously suggesting that Sonia Gandhi was more directly involved in these decision-making processes, because Mr. Rai has not suggested that. That is your inference.
Tell me one other democracy in the world where when the Prime Minister is on foreign soil, the young scion of the Gandhi family, who's a vice president, tears an ordinance, says it's fit enough to be thrown in the dustbin. The ordinance does get eventually thrown into the dustbin, and the Prime Minister is on a foreign country.
Okay, let me get Mr.
So, I mean,
Bansal,
tell me,
the
if that is not a
spokesperson of
good
the Congress,
example
to
where the
respond
power
to that.
is, what
The
else do we
larger
need?
point he's mentioning, that is not Dr. Manmohan Singh necessarily, it is beyond that. It's Rahul and Sonia Gandhi.
Let me first correct him when he says that Mr. Vinod Rai, because of the service rules and all, he could not have at that point of time, and since the inference is drawn that why at such a later stage, at that point of time while he was in service, then only he had pointed out certain things as far as this the CAG, as far as this 2G auction and all was concerned, the loss to the exchequer and all. So it's not that key that was holding him back. It was that simply there appears to be some hidden motive behind it. And
No, what is the hidden motive?
No, hidden motive is that everybody is standing, everybody is at the moment want to be on the right side of the people who are in power.
So he would write a book to be on the right side of the BJP.
Definitely so.
But a lot of people would say that he is saying exactly what the BJP has said for a long time.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He's towing that line, and that in itself shows that what his motives
if he says
but
Mr. Bansal, if he says something which might be a BJP position, it means that he's necessarily endorsing or speaking for the BJP.
Definitely not. What I mean to say is, when he had earlier also, while being in service, he had made certain revelations according to him. And why not at that point of time these things had come? Why after such a long time when the
so he's throwing a BJP agenda is what you're saying?
Definitely, I feel that way. I feel that way. And as far as our friend Mr. Kohli was referring to Mr. Rahul Gandhi tearing that ordinance, let me tell you, after definitely he had an important say in that. But general atmosphere and everybody, before you take up some drastic step or you go for an ordinance, general opinion.
Okay, let's focus on the issue at hand. Dr. Bedi, do you want to come in on this? Basically, the point being made by the Congress is that Mr. Rai is pursuing and has always pursued a BJP agenda, that this book is politically motivated.
The fact is, what Vinod Rai said, the whole country knew. It was all over in the papers all the time. It was in television debates. What is our Prime Minister doing? Not reading any papers? Watching never television? Did he not have any advisors telling him what's going on? I would think that the Prime Minister's conduct falls into one of the three categories. Either he's complicit, that he refused to deliberately see, hear or read. So it's complicity. If he's not complicit, then he's a bonded labor for somebody, or he's a mask for somebody. For whom is he a mask? And for whose bonded labor was he? Because if he's a Prime Minister of this country, he's not seeing, reading or hearing. I remember in our anti-corruption movement, since 2012, we were demanding a special investigation team on Colgate till the Supreme Court stepped in on a PIL. The matter was so overwhelmingly all over since 2012. Therefore, is the Prime Minister oblivious of what's happening to his country? I'm quite surprised. Therefore, I would say it's either complicity or bonded labor, or he's a mask for somebody. It's time that we get to know and expose this mask.
Mr. Tulsi, Vinod Rai seems to be stating, what a lot of people would say is obvious. Let me quote. He says, the buck stops at the Prime Minister's desk. In any parliamentary democracy, he is the CEO of the country. He can stop or he can initiate He can do both. I have written in the book that he probably chose not to stop. How is he wrong in what he is saying when important decisions like 2G spectrum allocation, important decisions as far as massive investments in Air India or the coal scam and allocations would have to have come to his desk as Prime Minister? How can the Congress party say, look, he wasn't involved?
You see, what comes to the desk of the Prime Minister is the policy. And when Mr. Vinod Rai chooses to make embellishments in his report and arrive at the conclusion that all this, if the Prime Minister is responsible, why did he not say at that time? Did he get intimidated? When you make embellishments, obviously the questions will arise, why are they being made now? Only because, is it an application for a job or what?
What embellishment?
You see, this is
what embellishment?
Some of the.
What is he embellished, sir?
Embellishment is that at that time, if now saying that Prime Minister knew, why was it not in his report? If he is making an improvement, if he on the allegation, on his finding, if he is making an exaggeration, or is it an embellishment? So therefore, all this is most unfortunate. It does a lot of damage to his own credibility. The Supreme Court was monitoring whatever was known. How can he go on adding to the findings or the allegations and suspicion? After all, what is it that the Prime Minister knew? Prime Minister knew about the policy of first come, first serve. But whether 214 crore had gone to a particular trust, which is connected with the minister,